two-finger rule. You hear it all the time. How do you know if your diastasis recti is healed? I get asked this question close to daily. If you look on the World Wide Web, you hear the rule of two. If your gap is wider than 2 fingers, you're supposedly clinically dealing with diastasis recti. If your gap is less than 2 fingers, you're miraculously full of function. So let's talk about what actually delineates a healed and functioning core versus what the World Wide Web says. Messages all the time from women saying, hey Ashley, I only have a 1-finger gap, but I'm still feeling pain or pulling or seeing doming or coning from my abdomen. I always ask them to recheck because chances are that they're not doing an accurate measurement. So let's measure. Okay, I want to show you what I see incorrect. They're crunching up too far. When you crunch up, your rectus bellies actually come together. So you're getting a false reading that your situation is better than it is. I hate to break the bad news to you. But having an accurate measurement is going to give you a really good baseline of where you're at. So you want to start at your belly button. Barely lift those head and shoulders, just barely, just until you can feel those 2 side bellies. Take a measurement. Down, you want to go a couple inches above the belly button. Same thing, barely lift that head. And then you want to measure a couple inches below the belly button. Lift up ever so slightly. That's your first measurement. That's the width. So is your width, were you measuring it accurately? That would be my first question. Second thing is you want to measure that tension, that bounce back you get from that tissue. We've got connective tissue that runs down our belly. We want to get a good sense of what that tissue feels like. Is it firm? So lift that head ever so slightly. What's that tissue feel like? Is it firm or are your fingers just sinking? You can see by my belly button, it just sinks in. Up here, there's a lot more feedback. So take a measurement of that as well. Okay, myth number 2. You can't do the activities that you love ever again if you have diastasis recti. Let me say this. If you're seeing a pelvic floor PT or a trainer who is not working with you to be able to do the things you love again, find somebody new. The mission of any good trainer is to get you back to the things you love, but to help you do it with that optimal core function. So, are you gonna have to regress? Absolutely. I'm sorry, it takes patience, it takes lots of patience. But your brain, if it's not talking to the muscle can't work. So what you're doing in those early stages where you're totally regressing and taking it slower to build back up is you're retraining your brain to talk to that muscle. And that takes a little bit of time and some practice. But the real question is, can you generate tension? Are you able to activate those deep core muscles and that pelvic floor so that when you're doing any movement that you so choose, you can have that nice core integrity helping to brace. Your transverse abdominis actually wraps all the way around your torso. So it's really important to be able to turn that on. I have an entire story highlight on breathing, so I'm not going to go into it in extensive detail, but using your breath and learning to use it when you need it, always exhaling with exertion when you're about to do the hard part of any activity, that turns on that deep abdominal system and gives you the support you need. So you can have a diastasis recti that is more than 2 fingers and is pretty deep, but you're able to generate tension in activities. A great way to know if you're generating that tension is to watch yourself do an exercise. So video yourself, watch in a mirror, or have a friend record you, but watching what's happening in your midline is really important. Number 3, surgery is the only option. Surgery is not the only option. Pelvic floor physical therapy can help make improvements by leaps and bounds.
I always recommend seeing a pelvic floor physical therapist before you make a decision such as surgery for 2 reasons. One, you might find that you don't actually need or want surgery after seeing a pelvic floor PT, but also even if you do decide that surgery is for you, which is absolutely understandable, you really need to be able to manage that intra-abdominal pressure. If you don't understand how your core canister works, you're going to experience dysfunction somewhere else, probably by putting pressure on the pelvic floor. So learning to balance that intra-abdominal pressure and understanding how this system works is integral, whether you have surgery or not, but surgery is not the only option, it is an option.